Credit where credit is due. Michael Bidwill is changing the narrative and history of the Arizona Cardinals in real time.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in Locked On Cardinals. Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter at Clancy's Corner _ Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen, free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It's been sports radio in Arizona since 2011. I've been hosting this lovely podcast since 2017. Thank you for being part of the 8th chapter of Locked On Cardinals. For me, it's wild that it's going to be the 8th season. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. A couple more weeks of 3 podcast weeks, doing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I will be back in full swing the 3rd week of July as camp opens. So many things to get to, so many players to highlight, and Michael Bidwill is getting his flowers in this first segment, but there's a couple trays that I'm going to discuss. That was coincidental. Trey Benson. He's going to have a very, very important and pivotal role in the Cardinals offense, and it's really going to determine how a lot of the offense matriculates throughout the year. I'll explain. Trey Mcbride. Fantasy writers have him around, a low-end tight end 1, mid tight end 1, tight end 6, tight end 7, tight end 8. What is his role going to be in 2024, and what does it need to be if the Cardinals want to win more games than they lose? But first, Michael Bidwill, if you've listened to this podcast since day one, if you're an everydayer, thank you, first off. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second listen. I have not been kind to Michael Bidwill, and most haven't. That's not like everybody's been kind to Michael Bidwill and you haven't. Michael Bidwill hasn't had a whole lot of things to be positive about surrounding his decision-making, both as an employer and as the owner of a professional football team. So I've discussed this a bunch on this show. I know that there's the McDonough lawsuit. There are allegations of misconduct by Michael Bidwill as an owner, by employees, people who don't play on the football team, everything from the report card last offseason to everything in between. I'm talking about football here, okay, because this is a football podcast. Michael Bidwill is changing the narrative around the Arizona Cardinals in real time. So while Monti Ossenfort is going to get most of the credit, Jonathan Gannon will get most of the credit, like 1A. And then, the players obviously will get more credit because that's how it works. Michael Bidwill deserves the credit first. Because what great business owners do and what great leaders do, and I'm not saying he's a great leader yet. What great owners and great leaders and great CEOs and great founding partners do, they hire the right people for important jobs and leave them the hell alone. And while it took Michael Bidwill 26 miles of the 26.2 miles I'm the owner of the Arizona Cardinals race to figure it out, he did it. Now, this is still under the guise of so far so good. We haven't even gone to the second full season of Monti Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon as GM and head coach, respectively. Kyler Murray still hasn't played a full season under this new regime. All of these things are still so far so good. And everything Michael Bidwill has done since removing the last regime from their respective posts was do everything properly, was do everything against everything that he's ever done before. When he said he wanted to cast a wide net, he did. When it was all about fit, he found the right guys. And when you look at step by step what he's done, it's been exactly the dictionary definition of what the Arizona Cardinals needed when they ripped everything down to the studs. He's never going to be the richest owner, okay? That's never going to be him. He's never going to have the deepest pockets. He's going to play conservative. And he has the right general manager in place. He seemingly has the right head coach in place. to usher the Arizona Cardinals 2.0 version of this organization into the future. Still, so far, so good. Still, we'll see after 1 year of a 4-win season. We'll need to see what it's going to look like, obviously. And even the naysayers of Michael Bidwill, and listen, I was one until about 15 minutes ago, until the beginning of the 2023 year. Got to give him his flowers. He is in real time changing the narrative surrounding the Arizona Cardinals that is marred and poisoned everybody around him as pertaining to football, pretty much since its inception. You gotta love the fans who have been fans since the 70s, 80s, 90s, whatever city the Cardinals were playing in. You gotta love it. That's diehard. That's the true fanatic. So while the longer you've been a fan of the Arizona Cardinals, the less you probably believe what you're watching. Makes sense. The Stockholm Syndrome to everything going wrong is real. But Michael Bidwill firing one of his best friends, understanding that Kliff Kingsbury wasn't the guy after giving them both extensions, hiring someone who's never been a GM before, hiring a head coach and coordinators who have never been a head coach or coordinators before, with a quarterback who is coming off ACL surgery, who's going to miss at least half the season, with the worst roster in football. I'm including the Carolina Panthers, the worst roster in football. He had a couple options. One, go the Jerry Jones route and just do anything to remain relevant. Or look in the mirror, say, I'm doing this wrong. I need to hire a football guy to run this and do it that way. He did the latter, and look at what's happened so far. I still say, so far, so good. But you can only gauge and rate things based upon what's happened already and what the runway looks like for the players who were drafted. So sure, you can say, oh, it's still the same old Cardinals. They're going to lose no matter what. They had 4 wins last year. They're probably only going to have 5 wins this year. How can you call it a success? Sure, till the cows come home. That's your prerogative. And looking at this existentially, if this doesn't feel different to you, nothing will. And that's fine. What the Arizona Cardinals have now is a positioning as such to where the possibilities are endless for this team. That is not what it used to be. And Michael Bidwill is the reason for that. He was the reason for what it was before. And he's the reason, the main reason, the nucleus for why the Cardinals are on a positive trajectory now. He changed. I guess people do. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. Trey McBride. Is it a boomer bust season for him? Have we let too much toothpaste out of the tube with Trey McBride to expect less than what we saw last year? I'll discuss it next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Trey McBride is going to have a spotlight on him in 2024. He is going to be schemed against in 2024 in a different way than he was last season. because they didn't have any other talent on offense last season, aside from the run game. So while, we threw away the Cardinals' performance last year, we threw away, the win-loss total, we were looking at, proof of concept, all of the future pacing wins, things like that, that I discussed so much last year. It's different now. He's public enemy number one in the pass game. It's Marvin Harrison. No, it's not. It's Trey McBride. For opposing defenses, Marvin Harrison Jr. is a rookie, and this may very well shift midseason. Like if Marvin Harrison Jr. comes in and he's just a wunderkind, and he just comes in and he's like, well, I'm Justin Jefferson, but better, and he has 1,000 receiving yards through like 13 weeks or something, we're going to have a different conversation. But Trey McBride is the second option on offense behind James Conner. And Trey McBride's role in 2024 may be a little bit different. And what I mean by that is them drafting Tip Ryman may alleviate some blocking necessity by Trey McBride in the offense. Now, sure, if you have jumbo packages and things like that, Trey McBride's one of the better blocking tight ends in the NFL, and that's why he was comped to George Kittle coming out of Colorado State. But that may release Trey McBride to run more routes, to not have to chip as much, to be able to, line up wide or in the slot and not have to put his hand in the dirt. Like Trey McBride may still have not shown his full potential because of what was necessary for him to do with the offense to keep it moving down the field during his first 2 years. If you told me that Trey McBride ended his tight end 3, I'd be like, okay, yeah, I can see that. You can see if Sam Laporta repeats last year's again, which is going to be crazy. They're populating Luke Musgrave out of Green Bay, and then obviously Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Mark Andrews. See if Mark Andrews can stay healthy. I would take right now Trey McBride over Mark Andrews, especially in the respective offenses, and both are seemingly run first. I would still take Trey McBride. I would take Trey McBride, for numbers purposes, I would take Trey McBride over George Kittle in the respective offenses. I'd probably take Sam Laporta at this point because they've got it figured out. They're a couple seasons down the road. And I'm going to have Matt Deary, host of Locked On Lions, on later this week to kind of discuss the comparisons because it's important. And listen, I know everybody's comparing the Lions to the Cardinals now. I did that like 2 years ago. Okay. Like this is what I've discussed. And I don't like the pat on your back thing. It's something that I saw coming a long time ago. And if the Cardinals can come to fruition the way that the Lions did, this is going to be a wildly fun ride for the next 5 or 7 or 8 years. But I would probably take Sam Laporta over Trey McBride. I don't know. I'm taking Trey McBride over Evan Ingram. Taking Trey McBride over Dalton Schultz. I'm sure I'm missing a couple. TJ Hawkinson. I'm taking Trey McBride over TJ Hawkinson with JJ McCarthy or Sam Darnold. Like what Trey McBride is going to be able to provide for the Arizona Cardinals offense is not only a safety net, a safety valve, 3rd and short, run 5 yards, turn around, but also a guy who is incredible in space, has great hands and great catch radius, and can run over pretty much anybody in a secondary. 6'5", 240, 6'4", 240. Probably run over linebackers. Like, I think that he's a perfect mix of Travis Kelce and Gronk. George Kittle is like a whirling dervish, under control, but he's a whirling dervish. Like when Trey McBride runs, it's effortless. It's Travis Kelce. But he can hit you like Gronk can. Nobody's ever going to be Gronk again, but like those are the two comps that I have, like the perfect infusion of those two. So when you look at Trey McBride, what are the numbers that he could hit in 2024? Obviously, there's a lot more pieces. You have Marvin Harrison Jr., Michael Wilson, you have Zay Jones. You've got James Conner, you've got Trey Benson, who I'm going to discuss in the next segment. But if you told me he had, 90 catches for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns, wouldn't be shocked. It's 5 catches a game. 1,400 yards. Like, it depends on how much they're really going to let it loose on offense. And it depends on how much the opposing defenses are going to predicate what weapons they use on any given football game. Because, like, if they're going to stack 8 in the box, Kyler Murray is going to pick opposing secondaries apart. And if they don't stack 8 in the box, James Conner, Trey Benson, Kyler Murray are going to run rampant. So sure, some of it will be game flow, but I'll tell you what, the Cardinals now have a very sneaky red zone lineup where you've got Trey Mcbride, over 6'3", Marvin Harrison Jr., same height, Michael Wilson, same height, Zay Jones, 6'2". That's 4 dudes well over 6 feet who are massive targets in the red zone. And that's why I think that Trey McBride, he's going to be used in different phases. Like, it's not a situation where I always go back to Philly when they had Zach Ertz, but Dallas Goedert was coming in with Carson Wentz. Zach Ertz was the between the 20s guy, and Dallas Goedert was the red zone threat. And I think that was part of the reason why they ended up moving on from Zach Ertz. But Trey McBride can be used during like a wide receiver. So I don't see him, and this is barring any sort of injury. We don't want, you don't want anybody to get injured, let alone somebody on the Arizona Cardinals. But the way they've drafted and the other tight ends they have on the roster could free Trey McBride to run more routes, line up in different positions than he did last year, not be on the line as much to chip, and not be used as much of a blocker, so he can really live his best Jimmy Graham life instead of having to block and having to block and having to block. The possibilities are endless. I would be shocked if he didn't end up a top 5 tight end this year. Shocked. To win in this NFL, you need an elite tight end. The Cardinals have one. And it's awesome. The last gift from Stevie Baby. That was just dumb luck. The Cardinals needed so many different things. And the fact that the Cardinals have Trey McBride was Steve Keim winning the lottery. And thankfully, he donated his money to Monti Ossenfort to be able to bear the fruits of Steve Keim's dumb luck. Trey Benson is going to have a much more important role than you'd think in 2024, and it's going to predicate how the offense runs. I'll discuss it next as we roll on here. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by Bird Gang Travel Club. So it's heating up, man. First off, talk to Tyler Vasquez from Bird Gang Travel Club, and he was gracious enough to extend a deadline that I'll discuss in a second. Bird Gang Travel Club provides the best and only fan travel experience for Cardinals road games. Okay, they're talking anywhere from 50 to 300 to 500 fans on a given trip. This season, they're hitting Buffalo in week 1, Green Bay in week 6, and Miami in week 8. The packages: top-notch rooms, 3 or 4 nights, lower-level game tickets. I need to rephrase something that I said last week. I mixed up one of the games. The Bird Gang Travel Club, as part of their packages, still have row 5 or closer for Buffalo and Miami. You want to sit close at Orchard Park? Bird Gang Travel Club. You want to sit close in South Beach? Bird Gang Travel Club. Not only do you get the 3 or 4 nights of lower level game tickets, there's parties each night with open bar and appetizers, unique fan tours of Lambeau and Niagara Falls, souvenir trip patches, State 48, trip shirts, and more. Visit birdgangtravelclub.com to see all the packages today. Payment plans are available. That's the best. Like, on top of this all being great, if you don't have the cheese up front, you can do payment plans, man. Makes it simple. Go on a vacation with the entire family. Sit 5 rows or close. Sit row 5 or closer in week 1 in Buffalo or week 8 in Miami. And this, Tyler extended the deadline for this until the end of the month now. If you sign up by the end of June, you can receive a signed Paris Johnson Jr. mini helmet for anyone in your package. So go to Bird Gang Travel Club, check them out. Use the code LOCKEDON to receive a bonus signed mini helmet or football from a current Cardinals player or alumni while supplies last. BirdGangTravelClub.com. And if you want to check out the merch, that's BirdGang.com. BirdGangTravelClub.com for the packages, BirdGang.com for the merch. Plenty of places to go. Check them out. Bird Gang Travel Club. Trey Benson, rookie running back, Florida State. Drafted the first pick of the third round for the Cardinals' first third-round pick of the 39 that they had. This was somebody that I mocked to the Cardinals a lot. Not mocked, like made fun of, but did multiple mock drafts. And I had Trey Benson going because everydayers, you'll know this. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, you'll hear me say this a lot. At some point, James Conner is going to need to pivot back to that RB2 role. I call it the Garrett Blount role. Inside the red zone, inside the goal line, need hard yards on third and short. James Conner, 30-40% of the touches. It's not there yet. He's still a bona fide RB1. They need to extend him at the end of this season. And I'm sorry if you subscribe to he's 29. Let's not look at anything else. Let him go mantra. James Conner can play an extra 2 or 3 years, and he should be playing for the Arizona Cardinals for every second of them. A lot of them, and the flexibility the Cardinals will have is predicated upon the performance of Trey Benson. Specifically for 2024, though, how Trey Benson goes could very well be directly correlative of how this Arizona Cardinals offense looks and the percentages of runs and passes they run play-wise each week. Why do I say that? If the Cardinals have two bona fide backs, you ain't got to run the ball. You ain't got to throw the ball as much. The Cardinals' defense isn't great. Okay. They've got the trajectory with the young players to be, but in 2024, they're not going to be a top 10 defense. I think that's pretty obvious. So the best defense the Cardinals have is staying on the field offensively. So if you've got James Conner, first, second, third, or first, second, you bring in Trey Benson on third down, and you can run the ball with both of them 70% as effectively with Trey Benson as you do with James Conner. This Cardinals offense is going to be very different, man. It's going to be less Kyler Murray having to bail out bad play calls, lack of talent, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'd much rather the Cardinals lead the league or be top 5 in the league in rushing than top 5 in the league in passing yards. I'd much rather Kyler Murray throwing the ball, 21 for 26 for 230 yards and a touchdown than 32 for 60 for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. That's the sign of a broken offense. Or that's the sign of a quarterback not being able to balance the run game and the pass game. Or it shows, it's the Blake Bortles effect where you're down 30 points in the first half and you got to chuck the rock the rest of the game. Kyler Murray's wheelhouse, 22 for 28, 240, 250, 2 touchdowns, maybe 1 on the ground. The catalyst for that to happen is not just James Conner. Trey Benson is going to have as important of a role. It's going to be in a backup dancer role. It's going to be in that second running back role. But if you can't trust the 30% of the touches that he has, that means more weight on James Conner. That means, is Amari DeMarcado or Michael Carter or Tony Jones Jr. or DJ Dallas going to have to come in and take some carries? Or is Kyler Murray going to have to throw the ball an extra 15 times a game? Those latter two are not ideal. So if Trey Benson has the ability to rush for 600 yards this year, it's not, 40 yards, less than 40 yards a game. That would change the entirety of this offense. If you can trust a rookie running back to hold on to the ball, number one, and be able to move the sticks. With James Conner taking a rest, heaven forbid James Conner gets injured, or a change of pace guy. If you can trust handing the ball to Trey Benson 70% as much as you trust handing the ball to James Conner in 2024, this offense is going to be a run first and probably run second offense. All that's going to do is force opposing defenses to stack 8, and you let the wide receivers and Trey McBride eat. This may be the most balanced offense the Arizona Cardinals have had in 20 years, 30 years, if it works the way the runway's set for it to work. And we're going to see really quickly. They play some really good defenses. They play some really good teams in 2024. The best way to mask a defense that's still in transition and still stacking young talent and getting them caught up to speed to be able to hang with the big dogs, the big offenses in the NFL. The best way to allow them to do that organically and the best way to allow them to keep up and put them in a position to succeed and be opportunistic is to keep the offense on the field as long as possible. Long drives, run the ball, run play action, score touchdowns and not field goals. And if Trey Benson can be that RB2 right out the gate, the Cardinals are going to be well ahead of the curve. Remember, without you, there is no me. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. I'll talk to you tomorrow.